When did you come to Denton?
Fall of 2019, before the pandemic hit.
So it's funny you bring up the
Hmm.
pandemic because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. How
Excellent.
was your life affected by COVID-19?
Ooh, it was affected pretty significantly. So firstly, I just got my first taste of freedom, moved out of home for the first time. And then about a year later, everything shuts down. We have to move back home. I have to go back to living with my parents. So that was unfortunate. I did like, however, that they brought back the pass, no pass option for classes. And because of the pandemic, teachers went a little easier, so I finished with all A's and that part went well. Everything else being in lockdown was not quite as fun.
Hmm. So how did you pass the time, not just with classes, but how would you pass the time in lockdown?
Well, I got really into physical activity. I had gotten a bit out of shape, I think, through everyone talks about the freshman 15, their first year at school. So I took the opportunity to basically spend all my time. I would just go to this basketball court at like an old school, and obviously the schools were closed, so no one was really outside. So I'd go, I'd play basketball. I walked like 6 miles every day. I got very bored, and I just got really active.
Okay. And obviously, at least for a period of time, we returned to normalcy here in the country. What was returning to normal life for you, if you ever did that?
Ooh, well, I would say that my life never really went back to the way it was pre-pandemic, but um, getting a steady job at the school television station was a big plus. Just being able to be around people again. I'm a very extroverted person. I get a lot of recharge energy just being around like-minded people. So that was sort of a return to normalcy. The thing that has made it most difficult to feel like we've been back to normal is I have not had a single in-person lecture in over a year. So I basically feel like I dropped out of school, even though I still go to school.
So do you miss the in-person lectures?
100%. I think the in-person is the effective way to teach because with the online courses, you get a certain benefit insofar as like, oh, you can match it to your own schedule. But I think most college students have difficulty regulating their own life schedule between its partying too much or dating and trying to figure out who you are and making money and a job. So we already have a rudimentary problem in scheduling our lives. Then all of a sudden you take the main crux of what we're supposed to be out of that. So you take it like, I mean, I preferred, at least for me, when COVID hit for the first time, what my professors did was they kept the same lecture times and it was just a Zoom class, basically. So it would still be like you were going to attend lectures Tuesdays at 11. But after that, because I guess of everyone's schedules, they wanted to make it asynchronous. And I think that was the stupidest move they could have done, honestly.
So, from talking with you, you strike me as a guy who really studies the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, what is COVID?
Ooh, it's a complicated question. So, okay, well, on the surface level, COVID is just a virus that came from China. Did it come from a bat? Did it come from a lab? I don't really know or care. I don't want to say not care, but to me, where it came from is more relevant than how it's actually influencing my life right now. So I believe that COVID is sort of a manifestation of the lack of faith in experts in our culture. So essentially, like, we don't trust, a lot of us don't trust our government, a lot of us don't trust our medical practitioners, the CDC, the FBI, like just all these institutions. And because we come from a culture that signifies not even just wealth, but social prominence over expertise and degrees and certifications, more when you can buy those things and they're not actually earned in the same way, we don't value those experts. So when you live in a world where the people in charge either aren't experts or you have been taught not to trust the people that are experts, you are going to question everything. And at that point, you're going to get to where you don't trust vaccines or you don't trust the mask mandate, even if it's been proven to be safe and effective in treating COVID or preventing spread. So essentially, I think COVID is a manifestation of us not trusting each other. And you can interpret that as manifestation of just actual disease. I mean, but some people are saying, it started in a lab. So that could be, okay, well, we wanted to figure out how to wipe out our enemy. And now we're discovering that the enemy may have just been our own ego.
Our own ego. So COVID-19 is in a way just distrust manifest in America.
I mean, you could say I think world across, not trusting the institutions that have been put in place. Like, for instance, I really didn't like America's initial response to COVID. The sitting president saying that it's all a hoax by the Democrats, that the Kung flu, all of these things are really just alienating the problem. And the problem is not necessarily, the problem is the people that manufactured the virus, if that is indeed what happened. But I think more so, how do you respond to it, and how do you take up arms against this strange
you can
new
point
problem?
Fingers all day, but at the end of it, you have to go into recovery mode too.
Sure. Well, yeah. So it's like you said. You could say that that's what quarantine was for a lot of people, and quarantine taught, I think, a lot of people, number one, that we don't like being alone with our own problems. So we like projecting them onto other people. So for instance, I'm fairly certain that through the pandemic, domestic abuse went up, suicides went up, divorce rates went up, child abuse went up, all of these things went up. And what do you think that would for me, that would say it's okay, we've got all these problems that we've been sweeping under the rug, and now all of a sudden your rug is your only blanket. You know what I mean? You gotta lift it, and you gotta just let all this stuff air out, which is bad. And the funny thing is that some people really took the pandemic as an opportunity to work on themselves and to become better and to solve those problems. And other people used it to escape into alcoholism or just ways of coping that may have not been beneficial in the long run.
Okay, I got you. Now my producers are telling me that we're running out of time on the interview.
Oh, that's all good.
No, in that, I still got a question for you. The Delta variant, okay? The great unknown.
Yes.
What is going to happen in lieu of this new variant running rampant across our country? So, do you have plans moving forward right now as if Delta didn't exist? And how are those plans going to be affected if
new lockdown? Okay, so my initial plan was to go on as if, look, I'm a vaccinated individual. I am not scared of the threat of COVID to my own body, and therefore I believe that I have the capacity to fight it off. Therefore, I wasn't worried about spreading it to people. The problem with the Delta variant is that it is affecting, I wouldn't say marginalized communities, but I would say vulnerable communities. And I would like to minimize the threat of unjust death to vulnerable communities as much as possible. Now, if that means I need to mask up again, if that means I need to get a booster shot, I'm willing to consider it. The only thing is, I think we're all getting tired of our lives having been halted by the pandemic. But if we don't all do our part to slow the spread or eradicate the virus, then we're going to just keep having this problem. So as long as there are people who are willing to endure the bureaucratic nonsense in order to get through this virus, hopefully we'll get on the other side in a better way. But as far as personal plans, I was going to do as much in-person classes as possible. Now that's kind of up in the air if that's going to be a deal or not. I have shows I need to work on. So I'm going to try and keep as close to the CDC measures as possible. However, I do feel like there is a little more room for flexibility because I feel generally most people are in a safer place. Most people. Fair enough.
Okay then. Magnificent end. That's all the time we have today.
Thank you.